Hi, my name is James Milner. I am a professor of political science at Carleton University, which is on unceded Algonquin territory in Ottawa, Canada. I also have the real privilege of being the project director for LEARN, the Local Engagement Refugee Research Network. I'll be joining you at the CRS summer course this year to give the talk, Understanding the Politics of the Global Refugee Regime. This is a topic that's really important to me. It reflects not only the work that I do today, but work that I've been doing since the early 1990s. I first worked on refugee issues in 1992 with Mozambican refugees in Malawi in southern Africa. At the time, Malawi, a country of 9 million people, hosted 1 million refugees from Mozambique. And it was extraordinary to see how local communities welcomed and hosted refugees across southern Malawi. And in the context of a peace agreement in Mozambique, that refugees themselves demonstrated great agency in the process of returning to Mozambique and rebuilding their lives. And for me, as having worked on refugee issues for the first time, this was the model of how refugee situations could be resolved. But through the 1990s, we saw that refugee situations became much more politicized. We saw a dramatic increase in the number of refugees in the world, and responses from states in the global north actively sought to contain refugees within the global south. I did my graduate studies at the Refugee Studies Center at the University of Oxford, trying to understand the politics of asylum in post-colonial states in Africa, like Kenya, Tanzania, and Guinea. I then worked with the UN's refugee agency, UNHCR, in South Asia, in West Africa, in the headquarters in Geneva. And then I came to Carleton University in 2008. And since then, my research and my teaching has really focused on trying to understand how politics has really influenced the capacity of this global refugee regime that was established in the aftermath of World War II with a mandate of ensuring protection for refugees and finding a solution to their plight, why this regime can't do what it's supposed to do. Increasingly, my work is focused on questions of localization, not only in terms of practice, but in the research that influences changes in policy and practice, and with a real focus also on questions of meaningful refugee participation, how refugee participation in a sustained and substantial way can lead to results that are more accountable, more legitimate, and ultimately more effective. So my presentation on understanding the politics of the global refugee regime and the conversation that we're going to have together is very important, not only in my own work, but where we find ourselves in the regime today. There are more forcibly displaced people in the world today than at any time since we had this regime. The average amount of time that a refugee spends in exile is now more than 20 years. More than 85% of funding for the UN's refugee agency, which is reliant on voluntary contributions, comes from donors in the global north who have actively pursued a policy of containing refugees within the global south. So it's no accident that countries like Turkey, like Lebanon, like Kenya, like Colombia, it's no accident that the overwhelming majority of the world's refugees are found within the global south. And by virtue of politics, it's no surprise that the regime is not able to do what it's mandated to do. So our time together at the CRS summer course will be to try and unpack the politics of the refugee regime, to equip ourselves with tools to understand why we face the impasse that we see today. Now, when you come to Toronto for the CRS summer course, I know you're going to enjoy the content of the course itself, but as someone who was born and raised in Toronto, I hope you also enjoy your time in Toronto. Toronto for me is really about enjoying this incredibly diverse cosmopolitan city that has grown up through the experience of immigration and diaspora communities that bring their flavors and their food and their backgrounds and their life journeys, makes Toronto this incredibly vibrant place that it is. So when you're in Toronto, if there's something that I suggest you do, is go out to eat. Go and enjoy Wookie Balls at the Rivoli on Queen Street West, or Doro Wat at the King Solomon and Queen of Sheba restaurant on Queen Street East, or Portuguese chicken at Amadeo's restaurant in the Kensington Market. In your time in Toronto, it's a time to discover these really small neighborhood restaurants that bring the flavors of the world to your table. So I hope you enjoy the summer course. I hope you enjoy being in Toronto, and I hope you find a really wonderful restaurant to enjoy a meal out in one of the most amazing cities in the world. Bon appetit.